Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesday. It's June 10th, 2025. Please note this event is being recorded. The recording will be on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. For everybody who's on Zoom, please feel free to put in your name, position you're looking for, your contact information, and reach out to those who are on the chat. This is a great way to expand your connections both here. I see we have somebody watching from Boston this morning or this afternoon. So feel free to, put your contact information in and reach out to other people who are on the call today. It's a great way to expand your connections. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help those outside the DFW area. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, or if you see me in person, I always have copies with me. Since 2007, I've been leading and facilitating the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. We've got a great speaker coming up this Friday that I'll tell you about at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the Practice Interview Team, a great way to practice your interviewing skills. For more information, you can just reach out to dallaspitcrew.com. Well, we have 4 outstanding speakers who talk about LinkedIn. They rotate through on a monthly basis. Today, our speaker is Kurt VandeMotter. He's a retained search executive at Linked Executive Search, one of the top 25 recruiters in the country. So, Kurt, thank you for being with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Can you see me all right, Jeff? I was on a call earlier, and my daughter said to me at the end, she said, all we could see was the bottom of your mouth or something.
Yeah, you're cutting off the top of your head just a little bit. There we go. Now
Okay. Well, good. Well, welcome everybody. I'm happy to be here today and look forward to talking to you about LinkedIn and how recruiters use LinkedIn. So it's a crazy market out there right now. So there's a number of things that I always start with, Jeff, and one of them is just a little bit about me. You can find me on LinkedIn and learn all about my background. But the bottom line is that I came out of corporate America not as a recruiter, not as an HR executive, but as a sales, marketing, operations person. And so I've done a lot of hiring, I've done a lot of firing, I've done a lot of succession planning. But as I go through my business today and go through search, I have a different way of looking at candidates, and hopefully maybe some of that will come through today, and I can share some ideas and suggestions that might make you more visible. So for 16 years, I've been in the search business, and I absolutely love it. And it's just very rewarding. It's a lot like matchmaking, my wife says, because I get to see both sides really happy. I get to see the candidate happy. I get to see a company really happy, and so it's a lot of fun. But that's enough about me. I want this to be about everybody on this call, and we've got a long list of people here. So first and foremost, if you've got a question that you've always wanted to ask a recruiter, or a question that you've wanted to ask me, or you've just got a general question, throw it into the chat sooner than later, because we're going to bounce around on a lot of different subjects. And I want this call to be about you and not me. So the way that we do that is to make sure that your questions get answered before the end of this call. So the very first thing I'll bring up, just because I think it's kind of the elephant in the room these days, is that we are in a hiring slump right now, and I can't put my finger or my pulse on it. I'm done making predictions as far as when I think it might come back, but there is definitely uncertainty in the market, and companies are pulling back and making offers, and they're not hiring as quickly. When you've got Corn Ferry writing articles about how companies are combining roles like the CFO and the COO, or the CMO and the COO role, and making that one role instead of two, that is definitely another sample or experience that would make us wonder what's going on out there. So, as a single shingle, as I tell people, you might not think that I've got as good a pulse on the market and what's going on and who's hiring as maybe a Corn Ferry does, because they've got offices worldwide. But as a single shingle, I am recognized by Forbes magazine as the 13th best search firm, retained search firm in the United States, and number one in Texas. So my phone does ring frequently from companies that do research on if they're looking for a recruiter, they're looking for somebody new to help them fill a job. That's a go-to resource. So I would say that even though I'm a single shingle, I have a pretty good pulse on the market. I also have a lot of friends in the business, and everybody that I work with and that I've talked to in the last few months has said the same thing. There's a gal that I work with and used to work with me here in the local market, and she even called me about a month and a half ago, and she said, "So what's it like at your end of the table?" And I said, "It's really quiet." And she says, "Wow, I didn't think that I'd hit that, but I'm dead now too." So it's going to come back, y'all. I can only offer advice that it's going to come back. I just don't know when it's going to come back. But when it comes back, it's going to come back strong. And I want to make sure that everybody on this call today is well poised and ready. I mean, it's kind of like preparing for that triathlete, or it's ready for that big race, for that big golf tournament, or that big football game, whatever it might be. You have to train, you have to be ready, and that's what I really want to make sure that everybody is ready and not sitting on their heels, because I don't think that there's going to be I don't think that Lester Holt's going to get on the news and say, okay, the hiring freeze is over and companies are hiring today. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen when we're not expecting it, probably. And like I said, it'll start happening. It'll happen at a rapid rate. So with that, let's be ready. And how do I help you get ready? So I'm going to stop right there and see Jeff. Jeff's my wingman. Do we have any questions that need to be addressed?
Yeah, the one came up, let's see here, from Lewis. He says, in finding a recruiter, how can you find one for your exact profession? I ask because I am in the event industry and it's been hard to find recruiters who work in that industry and help place others in it.
Yep. And that was what was the gentleman's name that asked that question?
Lewis.
Yes.
Lewis. So that's a
was
great
me.
question, Lewis. So it really leads right into one of the things that we talk about at the beginning, and I'm going to go to the slide that is about recruiters. So Lewis, the bottom line is that trying to develop for candidates to try to develop relationships with recruiters is very difficult. And the primary reason is that most recruiters, not all, but most recruiters won't take the time to have a conversation with you unless they've got a job for you to fill. Okay. And it's just that simple. We get paid by companies. We don't get paid by candidates. And so therefore, most recruiters don't take a lot of time spending, phone time with a candidate, even if they are recruiting in that space. So yeah, there are recruiters that have digs, is what we call it. It's a digs, DIGS. And there are some recruiters that work in very specific industries. And then there's recruiters that are in more of the generalist. If you were to put me into a category, I'd be more in the family business, family office space. But the bottom line is, Lewis, is that it is not really productive for you to spend a lot of time trying to build relationships with recruiters. Okay. What I would rather have you do, Lewis, is spend time getting to know LinkedIn, making sure that you are if you haven't seen Terry Sullivan's presentation, I highly recommend that you see that. But there's three kinds of recruiters, and let's flip to that slide, Jeff. There are internal recruiters, okay, and those are the recruiters that work for big companies. So Lewis, in your case, and I don't know exactly what you do, but in the space that you described, you may be talking to internal recruiters at like a Freeman Decorating, or at maybe a large company that does a lot of entertaining and trade shows. That could be a company like AT&T, or it could be one of the food production companies, a Pepsi or Dr. Pepper 7-Up, or somebody like that that does a lot of those shows. So those are internal recruiters. They generally are very, very busy. They can have anywhere from 10 to 40, 50 job orders open on their desk. They know the hiring manager really well, and they generally are very specific as far as what they're looking for. And the reason is because they don't want to go into the hiring manager and say, you know, I think I got the purple squirrel for you here. They don't like to take risks generally. And so they're going to present candidates that have the exact amount of experience and exact companies kind of profile that they're looking for. And they're going to stay within those tracks for the most part. Then you've got two kinds of outside firms. So if you're a company and you've got a vice president of sales open, you can go to two different kinds of companies. You can go to a contingent firm, and contingent firms don't get paid any money up front. They are not exclusive. So as if I was hiring that vice president, I could hire 4 or 5 contingent firms to find the right candidate. And the only contingent firm that gets paid any money is the one that brings them the right candidate. So early on in this business, I did one contingent search, and I worked straight for 48 hours to bring the right candidate. And called the company, presented 3 candidates, and they said, sorry, somebody, we made an offer to somebody yesterday. So my theory is I'd rather lose money on the golf course than to work for free. So I don't do any contingent work, but there are a lot of good contingent recruiters out there. One that may come across some of your screens in Dallas is Tony Bashara. He's one of the finest contingent recruiters in the nation. He's got a great reputation. He does great work. And he's always got a lot of jobs open, more in the tech space than anything else. But if you don't know Tony Bashara, get on his radar as well. And then there's outside retained search firms, and that's the category that I'm in. So a company or a family or a business would find me, and they pay me a retainer up front. So I'm the only one working on this role. I'm exclusive. They pay me a retainer up front. And then when I place the candidate, then I get the balance of the money owed. I generally have a different relationship with the firms that I work with than maybe a contingent firm does, because I really spend a lot of time to get to know the organization and what are the biggest problems that they're trying to solve. Because if I can find candidates that have actually worked in that industry and have solved that problem, understand that problem, then we have a higher rate or a higher likeliness of success than if we just bring somebody in that we're looking to fill a vice president sales, and we just don't have enough sales, but we can't put our arms around what are the problems that we want that sales executive to solve. So those are the kinds of recruiters, Lewis. Again, you can do research all day long on which recruiters specialize in your particular space, trade shows, entertainment, in that area. But I think it would be better off for you to take some lessons from some of the experts on ways that you can improve, if you haven't already, improved your LinkedIn profile, and make sure that that's singing, so that when somebody is looking for Lewis and they click on your profile, they know how to reach you immediately. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Any other questions, Jeff, up front?
Not right now.
Okay. So we've talked about the kinds of recruiters, and it's important as we talk about the types of recruiters, that we also include how we communicate with these people. Okay, so what I want you to occasionally do is make sure you pump the brakes. I know that when you're a candidate, the phone rings and your phone hasn't rang in 2 weeks, and it's the person at the other end of the phone says, "Hi, this is Kurt VandeMotter. I'm a retained search executive, and I found you on LinkedIn and like to talk to you for a few minutes." Our heart starts to beat, and we get all excited, and we're just can't wait to tell our story. So what I want you to do is, when that call comes in, is if you can, is pump the brakes for a minute and make sure, number one, that you're in a quiet place that you can take that call. I don't want you to take this call driving 75 down 75 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's just an accident waiting to happen. So I want to make sure that you can take the call in a quiet place. If that means that you take the call and you ask the person at the end of the line, and you don't even know who it is, can you give me a minute to pull over because I'm on 75 and I'd like to chat with you, but I want to be in a quiet place. Or can I call you back when I'm back at my desk? Or don't take the call, let it go to voicemail. And as soon as you're back at your desk, check the voicemail and call that person back. But regardless, make sure you're in a quiet place where you can take notes, you can think clearly, and you don't have to navigate noise or traffic. I once had a candidate take the interview with a CEO on the golf course. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do that before, but I don't care if it's the quietest day in the world or it's the windiest day. The person at the other end of the phone immediately knows where you're at because you cannot be quiet on a golf course. So don't be that person. Find a quiet place and get prepared to take notes. It's absolutely okay for you to say to the caller, "Could you tell me a little bit more about your recruiting business and who you are?" That can be within the first few minutes of the call after maybe they've told you a little bit about why they're calling and so forth. But the sooner you get to that, the better you're going to be able to communicate with this person. If it's a contingent search firm, then you're going to have to move quickly because they're moving quickly. They may be competing against two other search firms, and you need to get your name in there quickly, and you need to listen quickly to find out exactly what they're looking for. The very next thing is, before they may have your resume, but before you send a completed resume to a recruiter, I want to make sure that you take the time to update that resume to reflect exactly what the company is looking for. For some of you, that may be modifying titles. The only place that you've got to be, and I'm not suggesting anybody ever lie, but is on a resume. The legal document is the job application. So if the company is looking for a customer service retention manager in telecommunications, and you're a customer service manager in telecommunications, but your title doesn't say customer service manager and retention, if you're dealing with an in-house recruiter, you're likely to get overlooked immediately. And the reason is because your title doesn't match exactly what they're looking for. Now, titles can be really complicated these days. Companies can have crazy titles. They've come up with creative ways to give people big titles. So I want you to be cognizant of that, but know that that it's okay for you to, again, I'm not asking you to lie or suggesting that you lie, but if you've done the job, but they've just put a different title on it, this may be a place that you modify your title slightly so that you can get the attention of the recruiter. But the biggest thing is making sure that the bullets in your resume align with the bullets and what their priorities are for this role. Okay. So if their number one priority for this role is hiring, training, recruiting, and retaining, and that's number 5 as a bullet on your resume, you better move it to the top. And you might even put 2 bullets on that category. So make sure you're looking at job descriptions, identifying what the priorities are for those job descriptions. If you don't know how to use AI for pulling out keywords and using AI to help decipher what a company's looking for, I highly encourage you to explore that and use some of those tools out there, because it's really simple technology and it can accelerate some of your communications. So we know who we're talking to now. We're in a quiet place. One of the biggest mistakes that candidates make, Jeff, is they get a call from a recruiter and they feel like they're in the confessional and they just tell me everything about their life. And that's okay. And I listen. But what I want you to do is to try to ask good questions up front so that you can learn about what the priorities are for this role, so that you can answer their questions even better than if you had just given them a wide synopsis of who you are and what you've done. Okay. So that's just a little lesson in communications, as communicating with recruiters. But again, knowing your 30-second elevator pitch is really important. It's a great place to use it when a recruiter says, okay, I've gotten your background off their LinkedIn. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? We don't want that to be a 5-minute presentation. We want that to be a minute, minute and a half at most. Okay. Because again, we want to make sure that we're providing the listener with the information that's most relevant to what they're conducting the search for. And you may be in left field giving them information about what you did in retention and saving costs and ... And they really want to know how you started a call center and built retention. And they don't really care about the other stuff right now. Okay, so that hopefully will make a little bit more sense and help you communicate more clearly with recruiters. The bottom line, though, I talked about it before, and I keep coming back to it because I think it's the most simple equation or simplest formula that you or anybody in the search business can use, and that is that when I'm talking to companies, I'm always trying to identify what are the problems that we want this candidate to solve. If I were to write a review, an appraisal on this role, the CEO, the CFO, in a year, what is going to be on that review that's going to make this candidate stand out as being an absolute best hire you could have ever made? They did this, they did X, they did Y, they did Z. What is it that you want them to accomplish? I'm pressing companies on that all the time. I encourage you as candidates to press companies and recruiters on that same question. At the end of my first 6 months, and you write a review, what are going to be the things on that review that are going to differentiate me from everybody else, or that I know that you made the best hire? What are those things that you want me to accomplish? If you can get to the bottom of that and you've accomplished those things, then you've got a golden nugget you've got the golden nugget to go to the front of the class. Okay. So one of the questions is, and I apologize, Jeff's heard this apology already, but I used to, at this point, launch into LinkedIn Recruiter. And LinkedIn Recruiter, let me tell you a little bit about what it is, and we'll talk about it. But the product is very expensive. And because the recruiting industry has slowed down, I decided to end my contract with LinkedIn Recruiter after 6 or 7 years with them. And I'm not even using the product, so I can't demonstrate it anymore to you on the show or on this video. But hopefully I can get to enough detail that you'll understand and be able to follow where I'm going with what your priorities need to be. But let's talk about LinkedIn Recruiter, LinkedIn Lite, just LinkedIn in general. There were days years ago that I'd go to meetings and people weren't even on LinkedIn, so I don't need to ask anybody that question. But I do want to make sure that everybody takes LinkedIn very serious, because this is the only platform out there really that captures the greatest number of candidates for companies to research and to find people. So we can talk about AI And I can tell you that my son is involved in an AI product. It's called Sinecure. Um, they've been developing the product over the time for the last 4 or 5 years, and they continue to make changes to it and so forth. But the bottom line is their primary database is LinkedIn. Okay, they're scraping LinkedIn and pulling names. Now they're using other resources to find candidates, for in other blogs and other places that people write, people that might not be as big advocates on LinkedIn. But the bottom line is most of their resources are still coming from LinkedIn. So that tells me, and that's just reconfirms that I need everybody on this call to make sure that you've got the most robust, the best LinkedIn profile that you possibly have. So LinkedIn Recruiter was developed at the top. Recruiter was developed years ago in conjunction with LinkedIn and Korn Ferry. Korn Ferry came to LinkedIn and said, our database is outdated every day.
Oh, it looks like we just lost Terry. We'll see if we can get him back.
And it looked like he was reaching for something and then went away.
Right, right. I almost think his computer died because the reflection off the computer looked like it went dark, and then he jumped out. So we'll see if we can get him back here.
Maybe he can do it on his phone if he can't get his computer back up.
Yeah.
It's been good so far, FYI.
Yes.
He's a wealth of knowledge. I'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn and Korn Ferry, how that started. Korn Ferry said that every day their database is out of date. By the end of the day, people have changed their resumes, and so their database they had of candidates for go on were bad. So they reached out to LinkedIn and came up with the program. And LinkedIn, what it did is wrote a separate program that looks at all the data in LinkedIn, but you can't see that they're looking at you. So when a recruiter is looking, if they're using a recruiter or recruiter-like package, you don't ever see that they are looking at you. But what they do is they put in a job title and they use a job title from LinkedIn. So don't make up your own LinkedIn job title. Try to use one of theirs use one of theirs because that's very important to be found. And then they put in some keywords, and they could put in, colleges. I mean, they any category that you fill in, they could do, but most recruiters will put in a job title and 2 or 3 or 4 keywords, and then hit the search key. And what the recruiting package will do is go out and look and call up anybody who fits that mode. If they don't specify location, you're going to have people all over the country that could fit that bill.
I'm back.
You're back. Okay. I was just telling them a little bit about the package. Okay.
Yep. Good. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. My battery died. So that's not happened in a while. Anyway, so we were talking about LinkedIn Recruiter and then so Korn Ferry developed the product because their database was outdated every day. So LinkedIn Recruiter is a product that now is being sold across the market. Anybody can buy it. As I said, it's pretty expensive. It gives the people that are using it the ability to send unlimited, for the most part, in mails, and it gives us access to everybody in the network. So there's nobody that you can't find. There's nobody locked out, and so it can be a great resource, and it's a great product when business is good and there's a lot of companies that are hiring. Below that, there's LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. And that's a product that you can't send as many in-mails, but you get some of the same search features that you get with LinkedIn Recruiter. And then we just know the general platform is Sales Navigator and LinkedIn. As a candidate, I don't recommend that you do anything but LinkedIn. There's no reason for you to have, obviously, no reason for you to have a Recruiter Lite or even Sales Navigator for that much. I think just the regular LinkedIn package is what you need. I think the most important piece of it is your presentation in LinkedIn, so that again, companies, recruiters, people can find you. So one of the first things as we get into that, and what are some of those attributes of a great LinkedIn product is, or a candidate is, number one is make sure that you've got one single photo of you on LinkedIn. You don't have, you can do it with your iPhone. You don't have to go have an expensive phone picture taken anymore. But how many times I see a picture, and it's two people, and it's Sandy Jones, and I don't know if it's Sandy the woman or the male. Okay, so make sure it's just a picture, a professional picture of you and nobody else. That's just one of those things that's so often overlooked. I'll throw a tip in here for everybody on the phone. It's the same thing when I call somebody and I get their voicemail, and it's the AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile voicemail. The person you're calling isn't available. You know, you have only a few times to brand yourself. And if you don't take advantage of, you're paying for that phone service, you're paying for that voicemail, to put a personal greeting on there, you're making a huge mistake. Okay. Mine is very simple, but it ends with "have a tremendous day." And I want people to call me to know that they're calling somebody that's uplifting, they're positive, and that they're going to get a call back as soon as I can get done with this other call or get off the airplane or whatever might be going on. So make sure you take advantage of that real estate. Make sure you take advantage of your email, your signature block. Okay. If you don't have a signature block on your email that has your email address, your phone number, and maybe a link to your LinkedIn profile, and that's turned on for every email and that you send and that you reply to, you're making a mistake. Okay. Because as a recruiter, I'm busy and there's not always a laptop in front of me. And I can't tell you how many times I'll get out somewhere. I could be on a personal mission or doing something away from the house, away from my desk, and I need to get a hold of a candidate. And I go to their email and there's no phone number in their email. There's no email address that I can get back. I mean, there's an email because I can reply to it, but I feel lost because I don't have all their email or all their contact information. So don't be that person. You're at a point in your career right now where you want to be found. So make it really easy for people to find you. Let's go back to LinkedIn. We got a great picture now. If you are actively unemployed, you're actively looking for a job, I don't think there's any other choice than one, and that is to put the green wreath around your head. And I'll give you two reasons why. Number one, it just tells everybody in your network that you're actively looking. I can remember back when I was growing up years ago, my dad lost his job, and this was back in the 60s. And we were sitting around the table, and my dad said, "This is table talk. I don't want you to talk about this to anybody. This is just between us and our family here." Well, those days are gone. Everybody on this phone call and everybody that you know generally, and if you don't, you're a rarity, knows people that have been unemployed at some point in their career. So there's nothing wrong with being unemployed. It's not epilepsy. So highly recommend you put it on there, because not only does it tell recruiters, it tells everybody in your network. And you just don't know who and when somebody might be just flying through LinkedIn, looking at people that they know, and they come across your profile and they say, "Oh my gosh, Mike, I would never have thought that Mike would have lost his job. I'm going to get on the phone right now with Mike and find out what he's doing, because I heard company XYZ is looking for great people and Mike might be a good fit." He might have gone right past your profile if he hadn't seen that green wreath. So I could make up stories all day long about why to put it on there, but I can give you more examples and reasons why to put it on than to not keep it on. Only if you are a passive candidate. A passive candidate is a candidate that has a job that's actively looking. That's a passive candidate. Then in that case, you might not put it on because you don't want your employer, you don't want your boss, you don't want your customers to see that you're actively looking for a job. Okay. So that's the next thing. The green wreath goes on. The next thing I want you to do, and you can look at my profile to see exactly what I mean. You can look at Jeff's, probably it's got the same thing, but in my profile, in the about section, in the summary section, under my picture, it's where you get 1,500, I think it's now it's even 2,200 characters, Jeff.
Yes, 22.
A lot of characters to talk about who you are. In that section, I want you to put your email address and your phone number. You're at a point, I told this earlier, you're at a point in your career where you want people to find you. So if you put your phone number and your email address in that section, you will accelerate conversations with recruiters immediately. And the reason is because now we have a number and an email address to call you at immediately. We don't have to go through LinkedIn and send you an InMail. The fact is, recruiters hate using InMail. And why do we hate it? Because only 8% of candidates reply to InMails. 8%. Okay. So as a recruiter, let me give you a look at what my day looks like. I start a new search from 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When I finish searching for that job, I might send out 250 InMails. Okay. Because I've got a way of doing it really quick. But guess what? Only 8%. Now my numbers are a little higher up I'm in the 16, 17 to 19% category. But guess what? Only 19 out of 200, that's not a very good sample set. So if you as a candidate are one of those candidates in that 200, but you've given me your email address or your phone number, you move to the head of the class immediately, because I can reach out and have a conversation and talk to you right away to find out, have you solved the problems that I'm looking to solve? What's your current salary? What are you looking for? ... I learned so much from candidates in a very quick period of time. So you will move to the head of the class if you provide us with your contact information. After you get your next job, you can take it out of there if you want to, but highly encouraged for right now that you put it in there and you leave it in there until after you've got your next job. I think the next biggest thing that you can do to improve your LinkedIn profiles is number one is the way that you write your LinkedIn profile. If you have taken the shortcut and taken your resume and cut and pasted it into the different jobs that you've had in LinkedIn, you're just making a huge mistake again, because you really want to write your in the third tone about what you've done in third voice. So here's an opportunity for you to really bring keywords forward as far as what you've done and the accomplishments that you've had. This is the best way, and this is the way that recruiters search for candidates. So when I get a new job, I take the job description, I throw it into AI, and I ask AI to sort out what are the most important keywords in this job search. And I have them tear it apart in 4 different ways, to look at this job so that I'm not overlooking something that could be very important. Obviously, I look at it myself and read it and highlight and so forth, but I use AI to just make sure that I'm not missing anything. And then I use those keywords in LinkedIn to start searching for candidates. I use those keywords in my communication with candidates, as far as I'm looking for somebody that's done this, 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 and this. By the time that I'm posting this job, and I only post for maybe a day or two when I get a new job, and it's really just to see what's really quick on the crop, who's out there looking right now. When I do that, I generally get a little bit more information. I get a phone number and an email address. So it gives me the ability to have some quick conversations with companies, so that I can get back to the client in a timely fashion to give them an update on, yeah, we're looking in the right salary. We've got the right number of years of experience, and so forth. But as a retained search executive, one of the things that I try to bring to the table, and I think that you will get this when you talk to other retained search executives, is that we try to listen a little bit differently because we're not in a race to fill that job, to make sure we test the boundaries and we are bringing creative candidates to the table. And so that's where you as candidates can help us as a recruiter. When you when you get a call from one of us and you find out that you're dealing with a retained recruiter, I want you to again, um, challenge, not overly challenge, but challenge that recruiter on what is it that they're looking for, not just the industry, the years of experience, the job titles, but what are the accomplishments that they want this executive to do in the first year of this role? When you can get into that again, and I know I've pounded on this a couple of times, but when you can have those kinds of discussions, you will move the conversation faster than any other candidate because you're going to be talking and communicating right in the same language as the recruiter is. So we talked about LinkedIn, not adding, just copying and pasting your resume, but using keywords. So when, where do you get keywords? Well, you get keywords, number one, from your own resume. Okay, throw it into AI and pull out all the keywords. Make sure that those keywords are the keywords that you've done. If you've managed a P&L as an example over the last 20 years in every job, make sure that you've got that in each one of your roles. Okay, that's just really important to show that you've done it sustainable, you've done it for a long time, you've got a very strong understanding of managing a P&L. But the other places you get keywords are to start looking at job descriptions of the jobs that you want. Okay. One of the things I coach my kids on. So my youngest daughter is 31 years old. She's moving through her career very rapidly in the digital advertising space. And she asked me the other day, she said, Dad, what should I be looking for as if I want to get to be a vice president? I'm a director now. If I want to be a vice president, what do I do there? Well, I encourage her to go look at job descriptions for vice president jobs. Go look at job descriptions for the jobs that you want. I encourage you all to do the same thing. Go find the job descriptions for the jobs that you're trying to get. And what are the key words in those job descriptions that the companies are looking for? And have you done them? If you've done them and they're not in your LinkedIn profile, update your profile. Make sure you add those keywords throughout your LinkedIn profile to demonstrate that expertise. And I would do that on a regular basis. This isn't a one and done excursion. This is keep it going over the time in the course of your search. Because if you had written your LinkedIn profile 3 years ago and you were coming from a technology background and you didn't have AI, you probably didn't have AI in your profile, but you don't have it in there today, you're probably missing out on a lot of great opportunities. So again, great places to find keywords are in job descriptions of the jobs that you're trying to get. Jeff, what questions do we have up there now?
Lewis asked a question. I get calls and emails from recruiters, but not sure how to know if they're really a recruiter or if they're going to help me. What's your recommendation when a recruiter reaches out about a job to know if they're real or not?
I'd use LinkedIn and I'd throw their name and information back into LinkedIn and see what you find there first. You could also just copy and paste their name and email addresses into Google and see what Google's got to say if there's anything there. I don't think AI is going to be your best friend here, but I would use those two tools immediately. And that only takes a second. I know that candidates do it all the time because as I'm having email conversations or texting a candidate and we haven't met yet, many times when I go to my LinkedIn, I can see that they've viewed my profile. So I know that they're coming to see who I am. You should be doing the same thing. Go find out who they are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so one of the other tools that I want to talk about here, there's just a lot of different tools and technologies and things that you can be doing right now. But the fact of the matter is the recruiting business, and I know that if there was somebody from Korn Ferry on the phone right now, they'd probably want to debate this subject. But in my humble little eyes, the recruiting industry really hasn't changed a lot since, other than technology and making it easier to find recruiters. But the same procedures and the same steps go into it when I was working for Pepsi. I can remember back in I know I'm going to date myself here, but early 1980s. And I would be at my desk and I would get a phone call, and we didn't even have caller ID then. And it would be, hey, this is Sally Bishop. I'm a recruiter at dot, 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 and we're looking for a district manager for Campbell Soup. Do you know anybody that would be a good fit? And I would go through I'd go through the aisles of the grocery store and I'd say, well, do you know the person that sells ragu? Or do you know the person that sells this? Do you know this person? And I would list off 2 or 3 people, and I probably had their business cards because that's what we did back then. We collected each other's business cards, and I might give them those phone numbers. Now imagine what that recruiter was doing is they were sitting at their desk and they had a legal pad of paper in front of them. How many people have a legal pad of paper in front of them these days? And they were building a family tree, and they'd write those 3 names down. They'd call those 3 people, and each one of them would give them 2 names. They'd call those 2 people. Each one of them would give them 2 names. Well, that's what we do in the recruiting industry today. We try to explode our networks as quickly as we can once we understand exactly what we're looking for, to try to find as many people as we can. And so your job is the same. Your network as an unemployed executive, your network is your net worth. Okay? Your network is your net worth. And why do I say that? I say that because the people that you know and the people that are in your network, they generally are people that you've worked with. You know them from something personal, social, work. They're somebody tried to sell you something. There's somebody that you bought stuff from, or you tried to sell them something. But there's people in your network that you generally know. Now, in my case, I'm an open networker because of the work that I do. So I'm not a good example of that because I've got 12,000 contacts. But for most of you, you keep your network limited to the people that you know and the people that you've worked with. And if not, you might have let other people on the aisle in, but you have a network. And if you're not talking to and communicating and working with that network on a day-to-day basis, you're missing the biggest opportunity that you possibly can get. You can sit all day long in front of your computer and look at job postings, and you can apply for job postings. And at the end of the day, you'll go to have a glass of wine with your spouse, and they'll say, did you find a job yet, honey? And you'll say, no, but I applied to 21 jobs. I applied to 28 jobs today. But that's not going to get you any closer to the finish line. Now, that doesn't mean that I am suggesting here that you stop applying to jobs online. That's not what I'm implying. But I want you to be a little bit more selective, and I want you to take a little bit more time now to start to engage your own network to see if they can help you find and help you land your next opportunity. So the tool that I sell, and I'm not selling anything, and I mean that, the tool that I recommend to candidates is the prayer letter. And you've all received the prayer letter before, and it says this. You get it, and you open it up, and it says, read this prayer 10 times, send it to 10 people in the next 10 minutes, or you're going to die and go to hell. I don't see as many of those going around as I used to, Jeff. I don't know. Maybe there's some other virus that people are using, but I don't hear that, or I don't see that email like I used to. I used to get one of those a week, I think. But regardless, you probably all know about it, or you've seen one in your lifetime. But how does that work in life in a job search? Well, as I told you before, you all have a very active and a very vibrant network. So the very first piece, or the first step of your prayer letter is to start an Excel spreadsheet and put names down of everybody that you've worked with, people that you've worked for, people that have tried to call and sell you stuff, people that you've met at conventions, people that you might have met on airplanes, people that you met at sitting at the bar, you're at the same hotel for a week or 3 weeks doing training, and the same person came down and you got to know them very well. People that you go to church with, people that are in your neighborhood, kids your dad's moms you play soccer with. You've got a big network, and I want you to develop a list of all of those people. I want on that list their names, their email addresses, and their phone numbers. And the next thing I want you to do after you've made that list is I want you to literally take 30 days, because you might get done in 10 days, you might get done in 30 days, but I want you to literally pick up the phone and call every one of those people. If you don't get them on the phone, the voice message is going to sound something like this. Hey, Terry, Kurt here. We haven't talked in a couple of years, but I often think about you. How's the family? I'd love to catch up. I find myself actively looking for a new opportunity, and you're a part of my trusted network, and I'd love to have a conversation. Let me know when you've got 6 minutes, and I'd love to talk to you at that point. Call anytime. Have a blessed day. Thanks again, Terry. Kurt here. Jeff. So you get the message you're leaving. Now, that's the voicemail if you leave it. If you get the person on the phone, you're not asking them for a job, okay? All you're doing is letting them know that you are actively looking. And the way that you do that is you say to them that, I'm actively looking for a new opportunity. And some of the target companies that I'm looking at this month are these, and you give them in that live conversation 2 or 3 companies that you're looking at and having a conversation with, and you're asking them, do you know anybody that knows anybody in these companies? Though that's the conversation that you're having with them. And then you're going to ask them at the end of the conversation, hey, Jeff, I've really enjoyed catching up with you today. Would you mind if I send you a note every month and just keep you posted on my search and my progress and what's going on? And then make sure you've got the right email address. If you got somebody on the phone, make sure you've got the right email address. You've got them on the phone, so you know their phone works, but just double check that you've got the right email address, because people do change email addresses often these days, okay? Now, you've made those phone calls. It's exhausting. You've got people calling you back, returning calls. You're talking to them about target companies and what you're doing and where you're at and asking advice, but you're not asking for jobs. You're just, hey, do you know anybody? Any suggestion you got? Where are you going to network? Having great conversations. Now, remember that 85, maybe 90% of those people within 15 minutes of your call are going to forget that they talked to you. And it's not because they don't like you or that you didn't have a great conversation, but it's going to be because they're busy. Okay. They also have a life going on. They may be getting ready to send their kids to camp. They may be getting ready for the in-laws to come spend a couple of weeks for the summer. They may be getting ready for that big trip. They may have had a flat tire on the way to work and they're already 2 days or 2 hours behind. There's 100 different things that could affect why people forget, but they're going to forget that they even talked to you. So we've got to keep them updated on what's going on. And that's where the prayer letter comes in. So the next step is every 30 days, I want you to send this letter to everybody in that network. And what we do is we grab all those email addresses and we put them into a BCC. No 2s, no C's, all BCCs. So when somebody hits reply all, nobody gets a copy of it. And the letter says this. In the salutation or the subject line, it says, great people know great people. If you didn't know, I continue to look for new opportunities. And some of the target companies that I'm looking at include, and you give them a list of those companies. If you or anybody in your network has contacts with these or companies like these, I'd greatly appreciate an introduction. Feel free to forward this note on to anybody in your network. And then lastly, and most importantly, if there's anything I can do for you or anybody in your network, don't hesitate to call. I'll be back in touch in 30, 21 days, whatever you want to put in there, okay? Now, if you are intimidated about sending this letter, it's because you're not a salesperson. You might be in finance, you might be in HR, you might be in engineering, but you've got to figure, if you don't like this prayer letter concept, I encourage you to come up with another idea of your own, but you've got to touch base with these people every month. And you're going to um, you're going to bury yourself if you try to do it on a phone call every 30 days. So there's got to become an electronic version of your prayer letter that keeps your network posted on the fact that you continue to look. The one success story that I offer you, and I only wish that I had kept the stats on this over the last 15 years, because I make this suggestion to a lot of people, but there was a guy that came to me. He had worked for a company down in Temple, somewhere down South Texas. He had worked in the family business, as $1 billion family business in the food production category. He started working there when he was 14 years old. He was 52 years old, and the family had decided that they didn't want an old CFO anymore. They wanted a new one. So you can do the math on how many years this executive had been there, but he never had ever looked for a job. He had only worked for one family, summers in college, all the way through his whole career. And he had the deer in his headlights because he was a finance guy. You know, sometimes, and I'm not trying to be not silly, but you know, finance people just aren't trained to be salespeople in a lot of cases. And so it's not that they're afraid of their shadow, but they're not as forthcoming and willing to talk about themselves and open up about what they do and their successes. So I recommended the prayer letter to this guy, and he looked at me across the table at Starbucks, and he said, "You are crazy, right? You know, maybe a good idea, but you don't think for a minute that I'm going to follow up on that suggestion." And I said, "You know, I can't make anybody do anything. I'm just telling you that if you do it, it'll work and it will accelerate your search." He called me 4 months later and he got 3 job offers in 1 week. And it was all because of the prayer letter. He ignited his network. And even though he only worked in one place, he knew a lot of vendors. He knew a lot of competition. He had been to a lot of trade shows. He knew a lot of people in his network that maybe, you know, when I first asked him to start to develop a list of people in his network, he was not certain that he maybe had 10 or 15 people. Well, he ended up having a couple hundred. So everybody's got a network. Everybody's got to activate your network, and you got to keep that network hot and updated on what's going on in your search throughout the entire search. The only time that you have to take people off your list is when somebody sends a note back and says, "Hey, Debbie, don't ever send me another note about what you're doing in your search. I'm sorry, but I don't care." Then you can take them off your list. But don't be intimidated that you continue to send it. Do not include a copy of your resume ever. Again, we're trying to create conversations here. We want somebody to pick up the phone and call you. Make sure you've got a salutation in that email, that prayer letter. Make sure it's got your email address and your phone number and a link to your LinkedIn profile so that they can do their research if they forgot who you are or what you look like. But you're in a stage right now in your search where, in doubt, over communicate. And the only time you stop calling and stop emailing is when people tell you to stop. Jeff, I don't want to run out of time. We're right at 2. Do we have some questions there?
Yeah, there's 2 questions. Kim asked, do you suggest we use Google to find jobs? There's so many websites that have jobs. How do we find the most jobs since LinkedIn is only one place to look for them?
I think Google's a great place to go to look for jobs. I think it's one of those things, Debbie, to keep the blinders off. I think you've got to, activate this network that we're right here. Where are other people on this call going to look for jobs? What job sites are you finding the best? Are you using Google, and how are you using? Are you building a Boolean search, or are you just looking for pharmaceutical jobs? So I think, Debbie, it's a part of that. People don't get out and network face to face like we used to before COVID. It's coming back, and people are doing it more and more and more, which is awesome. I love it. But there's a lot of stuff that goes online like this today where and this went on before COVID as well. So don't let me kid you that this was just COVID. These aren't COVID driven meetings. Jeff's been doing a beautiful job of this for a long time, and thank you for that, Jeff. But you got to ask everybody, just like where do you go to network? What tools are you using? What job sites are you going to? Because um, we're all in this together.
Yeah, I knew I had some people, a couple people from my Friday group, and both of them were going after the same job, the same jobs that are out there. And so when, they tended to get the same interview, and whoever had the interview first would call the second person and say, hey, here's what they talked about, because they didn't care which of them got the job, as long as one of the two of them got the job over anybody else.
That's right. We don't want somebody from California. I'm sorry if anybody's from California.
Julie asked, what if many of my contacts are also looking for jobs, as in the case of the DC area?
It's all right. Doesn't matter. They're think about it this way. Go back to my phone tree or my family tree. Okay. And if you reach out to 20 people that are actively looking for a job, those 20 people have got 20 jobs that they turned down last week or that they have access to that you might be interested in. So that doesn't matter. Networking with people that are unemployed is a great place to network. I used to have a friend of mine say, why do I want to do that? That's like going to Alcoholics Anonymous. And it is, but unemployed people know where the jobs are at. Okay. And you know, sidetrack here, but accountability groups and doing it and working with somebody or two or three people in a little accountability group that are all looking for the same job is a beautiful thing, because you're not going to all see the same jobs. And the fact is if Jeff gets the job and I don't, Jeff's got 5 companies that he's been talking to that he's most likely going to call and say, you know what? You don't know Kurt, but you ought to know Kurt. Okay. So we work together in these processes. So accountability groups or sending and communicating with other people that are unemployed is A-okay.
Julie also asked, what do I say to people in my LinkedIn network that I haven't spoken to in 10 years or so?
You talk to them like you haven't talked to them in a week. How are you? How are things? You look great. Time's passed, but you look the same as you did when we worked together. Um, gosh, I can't wait. I think we all on this phone call have these people in our lives that, my best friend from college. Now we talk a lot more often because we both have a lot more time on our hands than we did 5 years ago when we were working and raising kids and all that. But we would over the time, there might be a year that we didn't talk. And when we talked, it was like hadn't talked in a day. And so you need to talk to those people just like that, just like you haven't seen them in a week. Hey, I miss seeing you at the coffee fountain. Yep.
Yeah, we had a speaker. I've had a speaker in the past about networking, and they said, go through your camera, your photos you have, and find a picture of somebody you haven't talked to in 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Send them the picture and go, hey, I just ran across this picture. How you doing?
Yep. I love it.
Good way to knock things out. Well, Kurt, since we're past the top of the hour, thank you very, very much for your time today. Coming up next week. Let's see here. If I get this load up here, I'm going to do the presentation on LinkedIn, Present Yourself Like a Pro. Our speaker next week had to take the week off. Last minute, something came up. So I'm going to be doing the presentation next week. So you can come join us next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Career DFW, Career USA, we're putting on training to help you. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the practice interview team for those of you who live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Come join them at Christ United Methodist Church at the corner of Parker and Coit in Plano from 1 to 3 o'clock. They meet in person on the first, second, third, and fifth Wednesdays, and they're online on the fourth Wednesday of the month. So if you're getting emails, you'll get updates and you'll know when they are online. By the way, I think tomorrow, because of Vacation Bible School, they're at a different room, so just be aware of that when you walk in tomorrow. This Friday, I told you at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, we've got a great speaker. Her name is Dee Robinson. She's going to talk about find and negotiate your next great job. I heard her talk a couple months ago in a great presentation. So if you want, please come join us in person, also at Christ United Methodist Church, or you can join us on Zoom, and it'll be in the email that went out to everybody. You're welcome to join the Career DFW, Career USA LinkedIn groups. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join the Career DFW group. I just ask that your profile must be mostly complete. If you're not mostly complete, why are you on LinkedIn? Just having your name and what you do is one thing, but load it up. Use LinkedIn to be your advantage. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. Please subscribe to the channel. That way, every time we post a new video, you'll find out all about it. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. Every video that I post goes into a playlist. You've got resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group speakers. So pick the one you want. And don't click on the video, but down below where you see that red arrow, it says view full playlist. If you click there, up will come a list of all the dates and topics that were talked about, and you can go back and watch any of those that you'd like to. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, grab your camera and scan this QR code, or just send a blank email to Career USA, the +subscribe at groups.io. You'll never be spammed because I control the mailing list, but you will get is a weekly email with upcoming events that we've got going on. Please note, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All of our speakers are a volunteer. Kurt's a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 15 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Kurt, once again, thank you very much for your time. And hopefully we'll see you either tomorrow at the PIT Crew or Friday at the North Dallas Group.